What's going on, everyone, and welcome into Plaisant's podcast, filled to the brim with glitchy analysis and freezing cold takes, so cold that they're boiling hot. In this episode, we are going to be previewing the LSU Tigers football season. Let's talk about the stars on offense. For quarterback, new QB, Garrett Nussmeier, 5-star guy, I think is really talented. We're going to have to see whether or not he's a competent starter, but I'm putting my faith in the fact that he's going to be a star. And then to pair with him at wide receiver, CJ Daniels, a transfer wide receiver from Liberty, 1,000-yard receiver. He is going to have massive shoes to fill here, but a star player in my mind nonetheless. The big part of this LSU team, though, is the tackles, the bookends of this offensive line, Will Campbell and Emory Jones Jr. Honestly, the two best tackles in all of college football. I can't remember the last time that we had two of the best tackles in all of college football on the same team at the same time. This is the unit right here. It's going to be really hard to sack Garrett Nussmeier. Now, on the defensive side of the football, a top 10 consensus NFL draft pick, Harold Perkins. He had a really bad season last year. To his standards, there was a lot of hype around him. But this year, he's coming back, and I think that Brian Kelly has really established his role here, and he is going to tear things up for this LSU defense. Now, let's talk about one storyline. Let's get into the key losses, additions, and then let's talk about our second storyline. The first storyline, though, a brand new offense. New quarterback, new wide receiver 1, new wide receiver 2, a new running back. Honestly, a new scheme because we have different talent here on this LSU offense. It's going to take a few games for them to establish the culture here, but I think that they can do it just like any other major SEC team. Let's now get into the key losses because I just talked about it. Jaden Daniels, quarterback 1, Heisman winner, drafted in the first round. Malik Neighbors, wide receiver 1, first-round wide receiver. Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver 2, 1,000-yard, led the College Football League last year in touchdowns. Gone, drafted in the first round. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you had Mason Smith, a defensive tackle. I think that is not obviously as big of a loss, but still a pretty big loss to the run-stopping game nonetheless. Now, on the addition side of things, you have CJ Daniels, who I already talked about, 1,000-yard receiver from Liberty. Jordan Gilbert, a free safety from Texas A&M, and PJ Woodland, a cornerback recruit, freshman, that I think will get some playing time this year. Definitely keep an eye out on him. 5-star guy, one of the best prospects in the country for this last year's recruiting class. I am pretty confident in the LSU additions, but I don't know if they can fill the hole that was left by this historic offense, especially with Jaden Daniels and Garrett Nussmeier. We'll have to wait and see on that. The second storyline that I want to talk about, I think Brian Kelly's seat is getting a little hot. Now, his first season, very surprising. LSU gets to the SEC championship game, but then this offense got better, but the defense completely fell apart. LSU goes 9-3 in the regular season last year. They were a fringe new 12-team college football playoff contender last year, but they have to be a college football playoff contender this year for Brian Kelly to keep that seat cool. I think right now it's room temperature, but that fire could get started if they drop a couple games. So let's get started with the record prediction. LSU has got some really cool games on the schedule this year. For starters, in Las Vegas versus USC. USC also loses their Heisman winning quarterback, but their defense is atrocious as usual under Lincoln Riley. I give LSU the win here. Then they come home in their home opener, open up versus Nichols. I mean, that's going to be, a 66-3 game. I don't really put that much emphasis on it. But then you travel your first SEC road game at South Carolina. LSU has far and beyond more talent than South Carolina, although I expect this game to be pretty close just because I don't know if this offense has established its culture yet. So South Carolina is going to keep this game close, but then they come back home and host UCLA. I am a firm believer that LSU can win this game. UCLA is going to be without their old head coach, their starting quarterback from a couple of years ago. I don't know if they've recovered from that. So UCLA, I give LSU the win. Then South Alabama comes to town. Another easy W. South Alabama also loses its head coach, who goes to Alabama to be the defensive coordinator. But then Ole Miss comes to Death Valley, the most dangerous place to play in all of college football. If this is a night game, I honestly expect this game to be ugly. And Ole Miss is one of my college football playoff contenders. I think LSU can pull out the win there. At Arkansas, Arkansas is devoid of talent, and at this point, I think they're going to be talking about firing their head coach, so tons of noise in that locker room. LSU can go on the road and get an easy win there. But then they go at Texas A&M. I think that is a really tough place to play. I mean, you've seen teams like Alabama, when they win national championships, go into Texas A&M and lose. So that is a really, really hard game to win. I think LSU drops it. And then coming off that loss, I think they lose to Alabama at home. I talked about how Death Valley is one of the most dangerous places to play in the entire country for road teams. But Alabama has always been poised coming in here. I think they've only lost one match in Death Valley in the last 15-ish years. I expect more of the same here. LSU loses that game. But then they have at Florida. I think that's an easy win. At this point, Florida, like Arkansas, is probably going to be talking about firing their head coach. Tons of noise. Lots of players rumored about transferring. LSU can get the win here. And then two easier games. Vanderbilt at home, Oklahoma at home. I think LSU can wrap up the season with two pretty much easy wins here. Wrapping up the season 10-2. This is definitely going to be a college football playoff contender. However, I don't know if 10-2 is going to crack it. Ole Miss is going to be a massive win for them. That will probably be the reason why they do get in. If they lose that game, obviously not a college football playoff contender. So that's my recap and preview for LSU. Stay tuned for next episode. We're going to be talking about Mississippi State. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.